Welcome to the Investor Coaching Show, a podcast to help you get an insider's view of the financial world and escape common investment traps. We look at the financial news of the day and help you make sense of it so you can relax about money. And here's your host, Paul Winkler.
And welcome. This is the Investor Coaching Show 2026 Wow. 2026 edition. I'm just thinking, 2026.
I was proud of myself that the first check I wrote, I actually got the date right.
You wrote a check?
I did.
What is wrong with you?
I know, it was outdated.
That is so 1990s. Well, but yeah, I messed up once. I've only messed up once so far this year. 3 days into it, I'm messed up. All right, paulwinkler.com is the website. Okay, Jim, your turn, man. You go. What you got?
Well, it's just a brutal takedown of Robinhood.
Oh, one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, and it's just a great topic. Robinhood being known really as the company that facilitated the whole GameStop thing a few years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, they made a movie about it called Dumb Money, which made the people involved kind of out to be the heroes, but it made the owner of Robinhood look like, he was kind of not shown in a real positive light. And this article destroys him as well. This is Eric Salzman from Racket News, but just talking about
CEO of Robinhood. Yeah, he's on CNBC an awful lot. Yeah.
Eric Salzman is just the guy who wrote it.
I was just talking about you were talking about the CEO of the company.
Right.
He's
right.
always on. I see him all the time.
Vlad Tenev.
Is that his name? Okay. Yeah.
The guy's multi-billionaire, and Robinhood almost died through the whole GameStop thing, but they've just blasted back, and they're essentially doing it through getting young people to gamble.
Right. Well, they had that whole thing for payment for order flow.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It was the big thing. So the idea being that if you're going to buy, let's say I'm going to buy a car, and I want to buy a certain car, and you have somebody that's going to buy it for you. They're going to help you out with that purchase. And they run around and they find somebody that's going to charge you more for the car, and they'll say, hey, I'm not going to charge you anything for the service of buying this car for you. But what they do is they find somebody that charges more and they get a kickback, from that entity.
Yeah. They tell you you're going to get free trades, but you end up worse off on the deal.
Yeah, exactly. And you just don't realize it because you don't see the expense. Yeah.
Yeah, and just some of the quotes in here are really good. Robinhood is a pusher in plain sight, and dopamine is the drug it peddles.
Right.
And that's you think of it's the clientele that it's serving, and it's video game, kind of addicted young adults, people that are getting that type of hit from, in this case, trading. And not only have they done this in stocks, and they're pushing this in stocks, but pushing really, really hard into options, which we mentioned last hour on, how, and options, I guess, makes these companies, the money they make on options is significantly higher than it does on a regular stock trade. So, of course, what are they going to try to get people to do? What are they going to tell, what do the emails say? Learn to sell options, do this. Options are great.
And they're often traded on the idea, this is how to protect your portfolio. Here's how to, reduce the risk of your investment portfolio using options contracts. And we've talked a lot about that before. But the reality of it is you can magnify gains and losses when it comes down to the options contracts. There are these guys that actually write books and they say, it's not an option. They do their commercial and they talk, buying stocks in this market is not an option. You need to use options contracts, and they play on greed or they play on fear. If you're talking about puts, where you actually can sell it at a certain price so you won't lose. And they're a tool that can be useful in very, very limited circumstances. I mean, extremely limited. I wouldn't use them as an investment, but I've had situations where people have ESOPs, employee stock ownership programs, and they can make sense, but they're using them as an investment vehicle and playing off the idea that it's exciting.
And even down to the point of now there's something called 0-day options. which a 0-day option is basically you buy an option that, essentially at the beginning of the market. And if the market goes up by more than 1% or down by more than 1%, you win. If it doesn't, you lose. So to me, that's just pure gambling.
I think it reminds me a lot of one of my mentors used to talk about zero coupon bonds. And he would just talk about the marketing team there is really messed up. And calling anything with investing zero is not a good idea, because nobody wants zero. But you talk about dopamine and this type of investing lighting up people's brains. I was talking about this. How sugar, social media, substances, and things like that light up people's brains, but it's not necessarily the thing that you want to be doing. And I was talking about how service to others is a better idea. But, when it comes to investing, boring is actually a little bit better, because the reality of it is, when we try to predict the future, when we try to invest based on what's going to happen next, how can we magnify these gains and those types of things, people end up losing quite often way more than they end up benefiting from that. But these companies make a ton of money on people's penchant for gambling. And it's really what it is.
On the idea of these 0-day options, another thing from the article, and the trades are, there are many iterations of this type of trade. The type of trade Flash Boys, they wrote the book and the movie Flash Boys. That's the type of trade Flash Boys wrote the book on, and they are the ones Robinhood's customers are trading against. Who do you think's going to win that one over time?
Oh, man, not the general public, that's for sure.
Exactly. They're trading against these sophisticated, high-frequency trading algorithms and traders and stuff like that, and that's who you have to be.
Yeah, and quite often, the amount of money that they put in these computer networks to be close as they can possibly be to Wall Street, it's daunting. You can't compete with that. And yet, that's literally what they try to convince you can do. And they love it. They're loving it all the way to the bank. And they can make significant money off of people. And then what happens is so often, as I always say, every 7 years you wait to start saving for retirement, you cut your retirement in half. I use that with younger people. Who gets overwhelmingly attracted to this stuff? Younger investors. And time is precious. You don't have time to screw up, and mess up your investments, over years and figure out, oh gosh, this probably wasn't a good idea. And watch these companies get rich. Oh, you see the stock price of Robinhood?
Oh, it's insane.
It's insane how much that stock has gone up because they're making money hand over fist.
Well, that's just it. You think, it's a free country. Something like this has a legal right to exist.
It does. Yeah,
but,
it's true.
The fact that, people are generally hurting themselves. Not many people are helping themselves. The mass majority of people are hurting themselves because they're gambling and speculating money that they need for their family, for their future, for things like that. And now, of course, and this is something I know you've talked about in recent history, was the prediction markets. So they're not only, stocks, options, things like that, but now generalized gambling. And so you can bet on football games. That's coming if it's not already here. You can bet on elections, things like that. But I like the fact that what happened, rather than it's, because sports betting is highly regulated, but my understanding is the way that it's regulated through Robinhood is it's regulated as a financial product. So it's regulated differently, and it's legal to sell to 18-year-olds. Online sports gambling sites like, I won't mention any names, but they require customers to be 21 years old. So right there's a big difference in regulation that they're getting through a loophole in order to push the ability to gamble to younger adults.
Well, and as you say that, I'm thinking a lot of people out there would go, well, I'm glad I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I won't do that. I wouldn't do that with my own retirement. But they don't recognize that mutual fund companies and investment companies, and the ways that you look into this, I always tell people, look at turnover ratios in mutual funds that you own. Look at your statement this year. What do you have in your investment accounts? And what did you have 10 years ago? And if you see big differences in the funds that you own and things that you're investing in, recognize that your investment managers may be actually gambling with your money as well. It's not just this flagrant stuff that we're talking about right here. It is the industry as a whole has a tendency to do this. And most people don't recognize it's actually happening.
It's one of the hardest mindsets for people to get out of, is that investing is gambling, and I need luck to be successful, or I need somebody who has extra information or anything like that. I mean, we do so much education for our clients, and sometimes I still get that, yeah, this is all good, but what do you think the market's going to do this year? And it's, well, this is kind of what I think, and my opinion is completely irrelevant to anything that we're doing.
Yeah. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. And, and a lot of times when people hear that, they're like going, well, don't you have any inkling what it's going to do? And I can give you this, historically, 3/4 of the time, 3 out of 4 years, the market goes up. But there's that 1 out of 4 years. And it may not be that it goes up, down, up, down, up, down. It's, not that. It may be up, down, up, down. It might be like that. You just can't predict it at all. And you don't know what's going to happen. And therefore, that's why it's so futile, because news is what's driving markets to do what they do. It's brand new information.
Right.
And we don't know that news.
For example, the first thing we talked about in the other hour was Venezuela. Yeah. Nobody knew that was coming, or very few did. I mean, you talked about the prediction markets kind of edging up right before it happened. So maybe somebody knew, somebody saw some planes flying or something, and maybe word got out a little bit. But essentially, that's information that was unavailable until it actually happened. And if anybody could actually predict this stuff, it's very simple. If somebody could actually predict this stuff on a regular basis, they'd have all the money.
Yeah.
They wouldn't tell anybody. They wouldn't sell that information. You wouldn't sell that information for a few bucks on a newsletter. You'd use that information to get all the money.
And I remember Gene Fama, University of Chicago, he's the Nobel Prize winner from 2013, and he would talk about what can anybody have, because anybody has the golden gift. Can anybody have this ability to kind of figure out what might happen? And he says, yeah, but it takes like 60 years to figure out whether somebody's outperformance was due to skill or luck, number one. But he also says something else that was interesting. If you do have somebody that does have a gift, and they're really good at maybe ferreting out mispricings in markets to try to increase returns, he says what they naturally do, what it naturally ends up happening is the expense to hire them goes up to where the advantage disappears. And I thought that was a really interesting observation.
I've always loved that point. I always thought that, because it's just that rent essentially just disappears.
Yeah. I'm going to charge you if I do have this gift, and maybe I am that skilled. I'm going to increase the amount of expense.
And there's also a thing that the studies, one that we had in the original workshop, showed that basically I studied 443 managers for a show of statistical significance over a period of 25, 30 years, something like that. And less than 1% actually showed that. And even with that 1%, whatever made them skilled over that time period, there's no guarantee that was still going to work.
Right. Because once somebody sees that you're skilled, they're going to try to replicate what you're doing. For example, it used to be that people would look at insider trading. And they go, well, what are insiders doing? What are the CEOs of the company, the CFOs of the company? What are those people actually doing in the company? What are they doing with their stocks? Are they buying their own stock of their own company? And they'll go, well, let's just watch them. Well, all of a sudden, what became ubiquitous? Information on what insiders were doing. You could literally go to websites now. You can go to websites right now and look at what all the insiders are doing in their companies. Advantage gone. So it doesn't work.
The Pelosi portfolio tracker. She's not on the inside of a company. That actually does exist, whether or not
does.
That, again, that's something in the likely not to work in the future.
Well, it's like
that's inside information.
We talk about the Warren Buffetts of the world. There was an article about that talking about why there'll never be another Warren Buffett. And it was super interesting about when he bought his first stock. But here is a guy. And I'm going to just go off this rabbit trail for just a quick second, because I've had this in my sticky hands for 2 weeks now, this article. It says since 1942, he's bought... I had no idea about his history. I did not know this, Jim. Listen to this. Let's start with one person. Buffett is not only brilliant, but he has an entire long lifetime obsessed with the stock market. Unbearable sacrifice, foregoing a normal social life and family life. It said that since 1942, when he bought his first stock at age 11, he has devoured information about companies, reading corporate reports the way most people listen to music. Buffett would wander through his house with his nose in a corporate annual report, practically bumping into furniture, oblivious to the comings and goings of family and friends. He was off in a world of his own, fixated on tax loss carryforwards and amortization schedules. He's read more than 100,000 financial statements in his more than 7-decade career, and his memory is almost supernatural. I mentioned a book I was reading. He says this. He said he had a phone interview. This writer for the Wall Street Journal says, I mentioned a book I was reading. He exclaimed that he had also read it more than a half century earlier. And he began describing a passage. I grabbed the book, found the page, and realized to my astonishment that Buffett recalled almost every sentence verbatim. And you look at that, and even when you listen to what Buffett has to say about what would you do? He tells you, don't try to do what I do. I remember one of my finance professors. He says, unless you wake up in the morning and you get in the bathroom, you look at the mirror, and unless you see Buffett's face, don't try to do what he does.
Yeah. That would be quite frightening, actually.
Yeah, it would be kind of frightening. But anyway, I think that's interesting. But, you take these Robinhoods and these companies, they are trying to encourage you to do this. And they point to guys like Buffett and go, see, it can be done. And the reality of it is, he would also get on boards and he would turn companies around, do other things. He, as I kiddingly say, he cheated as well, but he would actually, because he's a good business person. But I had no idea how just dedicated he was. I really did not recognize. I didn't know that about him, that he would study these things like that. And I thought, wow, what a life.
Yeah.
Thank you. No.
Well, you think with Robinhood too, where are all the Robinhood millionaires, billionaires? There's always been that question,
Yeah, good question.
And if people really can do this and
they're the ones selling. They're the ones selling the investments to people.
Yeah.
It's like the annuities. I always say, hey, you want to make a lot of money on annuities? Be the person selling them.
Yeah. And if people, if people are successful, they probably try to prop those people up. Just like when people go to Vegas, then, they got the winners. This is the guy who pulled the handle out of the 100,000 people that pulled the handle and lost. Here's the guy who won a bunch of money. That's probably, hey, look at this. This can be done.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And they'll appeal to people's greed, that this can be you. And, And the psychology behind it is just... It's fascinating but scary at the same time. How people can be pulled in through greed and through fear on the other side. They can be
brain chemistry, right? Just a dopamine addiction, just like they have it set up to work like video games, where you just get those little pleasurable hits enough to just want you to keep coming back and trying for that again, get a bigger hit, that type of thing.
Well, and on the fear side, typically what happens is in your brain, the part of your brain that responds to emotions, the amygdala and the medial part of the brain. What happens is that actually, it literally, you can look at functional MRIs and it grows in size. I mean, on a functional MRI. And what happens is it crowds out the ability to think rationally. When I'm scared, I don't think rationally. That's why when people are scared, they'll typically make very, very bad decisions. Or, like when you're trying to discipline a child, for example. Screaming at them is not going to do you a whole lot of good because the kid can't think straight when you're screaming at them. And it's the same thing with adults. When you're screaming at them, fear, scared, you got beware, this is what's going to happen. They can't think straight and they make bad decisions as well. And that's what the investment industry loves, a person that's not thinking. Hey, just a note to you podcast folks, we just came out with a retirement income guide and I'm super excited about this. There are all kinds of myths about taking income in retirement. People worry about running out of money. And rightfully so, because a lot of these myths can actually cause that. Now, the myths that you typically hear about, number one, dividends, living off dividends in retirement, real estate, life insurance as a retirement investment, and annuities, and interest-bearing accounts, and target date funds. There are all kinds of things out there. What I want to do is put something together that walks through why those things are problematic, number one. Number two, the other thing that I wanted to do is walk through the evidence-based research on taking income in retirement. And we got a ton of data going all the way back to 1900. what's the logic behind it? And it's intensely logical. So we put that together, and all you have to do to download that, making it super simple, just go to paulwinkler.com/relax, and you can actually get into that very easily right there. So I would urge you to do that. Check it out, because I think you're going to really like it. paulwinkler.com/relax. All right, we're back here on the Investor Coaching Show. I'm Paul Winkler. He's Jim Wood. paulwinkler.com is the website. You can set up a 15-minute. You want to start your 2026 off right and get with somebody. Any of our 10 offices around here, just get with us. Go to the website. You can actually get on our schedule right there. Go straight there. Jump on the schedule. Now, if you're a client, you don't need to go through that. Just call us up. Time to get stuff straight. Let's get back together and work through things. The software that we use for the future actual planning and where are we going to get income and how's that? That's something we like to update every once in a while because, tax laws, change, things happen, and we want to make sure that that's up to date, what we're doing there. Typically, that'll be something that we want to do through the course of the year. And you can do that, go to the website. Just if you forgot our phone number, go there. But anyway, how to live an upscale lifestyle abroad on a Social Security budget. I thought this was interesting. There are those people, and they're scary how many people there are. It is scary how many people there are that have not saved for retirement, that they just don't have much put aside at all because they thought that day would never come. So if you're one of these people, listen up. Or if you're somebody that, you got stuff set aside, but you want to, you think this is interesting, this would be fun for you. I wouldn't do this, but I thought this was an interesting article. Here are 5 key financial decisions we've made that explain how this is possible. This couple talks about. Said that they had this, when our careers and savings were decimated by the Great Recession of 2008, if your investments were decimated in the Great Recession of 2008, you didn't invest properly. Let me just put that way. We had 2000, 2002, the 2008 market down. You actually should have done quite well if you were well invested during that decade, but apparently these people did not invest well. So this became a necessity for them. We moved to Ecuador. Is where they moved to, primarily because it offered a much lower cost of living than the United States. Ecuador. I mean, imagine living in Ecuador, Jim. Can you picture? That'd be wild, living in just a totally foreign country.
And warm and green.
And you have nobody that you know?
Yeah.
I would think that would be just so weird. I couldn't do it. But they did. Anyway, it says for the last 15 years, we've enjoyed an upscale lifestyle beyond anything we could have dreamed possible. We live in a spacious, modern penthouse apartment with a large terrace that overlooks a river and beautiful views of distant mountains. We eat. I don't care how beautiful the view is. I'd get bored of it eventually. But anyway, we eat at nice restaurants several times a week, have a housekeeper, and travel frequently. Plus, we're able to contribute as much as 20% of our income to savings each month. All of this on a Social Security budget. You got to wonder what their Social Security benefits are. Did they max out? Did they wait till age 70, max out their benefits or what? But all of that on that amount of money. So what makes it happen? Well, number one, I thought this is interesting. They don't own a car. They have no transportation. They literally walk everywhere they want to go to in Ecuador. And it says they discovered the walkability of the city that they live in on a scouting trip they took prior to moving. Average cost of owning a car is about $1,000 a month, and they don't have that expense. 90% of our daily needs are within a 10-minute stroll. I thought that was kind of interesting. Renting our residence. So they rent, they don't own. And I put that in a precarious position, I guess, if somebody decides to raise the rent on them. But they don't own the place. They sold their house, and they said prices for residences are in Ecuador up one third lower than major metropolitan U.S. cities. But expats must pay cash since there are no financing opportunities. Now, I don't know. I guess some people do buy. So that's what that tells me right there. They have reasonable monthly rental payment, no taxes, maintenance costs, or unexpected repairs to worry about. They found that, they said that health instead of health care. So they actually have a different approach, where they said that according to a report by a wealth management firm, it was a healthy couple between the ages of 65 and 74 spends about $13,000 per year on healthcare. That figure rises to $23,000 between 75 and 84 and soars to over $40,000 over the age of 85. Our outgo on is a small fraction of these figures. We're members of Ecuador's national healthcare system, and we also maintain Medicare coverage in the United States, but the usage of both is minimal because we invest time, energy, and money into health and wellness, so they exercise a lot. And that reminded me of the client that I have that runs multiple nursing homes, and he made that point. He says, hey, you want to square the curve? Eat well, exercise in retirement. And, because he was just talking about how people, they don't go through the long decline when they take care of themselves. And that's basically what these people are saying as well. And they get lots of senior discounts. I guess in Ecuador, they have lots of senior discounts. I don't know what they, I guess they look at them and go, you're old.
I think it's the blue light special. I just think in terms of this, it's, it sounds like this works for them. Mm-hmm. And it could work for a lot of people, but the healthcare is a big deal, and they're relatively healthy right now, so it works. But what happens? Okay, you have to walk everywhere. What happens if all of a sudden you have a knee problem and you can't take a 10-minute walk to get your food? And then who's going to deal with your knee? And where do you go to rehab and all that? Which they might have great answers for, but this is stuff that's you have to consider along the way. It's another way to live. There's nothing wrong with it, but boy, it'd be something that'd have to be the right fit for the right people. Yeah,
well, and it's human nature. This is I say younger. They're in their 60s, and the older I get, the younger they are. but I think that for them, they're looking ahead and go, hey, I feel great right now. We exercise, and it's like they didn't plan for now. Because the whole premise of the article is they're only living on Social Security. So when they were in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, they apparently didn't plan ahead that they would be at this age where they're in this situation where now they're dependent upon the Social Security as their only source of income. And they didn't really think ahead then. Is it that they're not thinking ahead now in their 60s? That they're going to be at that point, like you're talking about, Jim, that they're going to be in their 80s. And it sounded tenable when they first started retirement in Ecuador, but maybe it's not going to work out so well in the future.
Another thought there is what happens when one of them passes and they lose one of the benefits. Then you have the one person rather than, that point. Income is cut in half. Can they still live down there and maintain some sort of the same lifestyle?
I didn't even think ahead, in terms of that, on that as well. But yeah, it's a really good point you're making right there. What happens at that particular point? So yeah, I think it's interesting, not for me. Hey, this is Paul Winkler. Hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Investor Coaching Show. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to our website, paulwinkler.com. Until next time, I'm Paul Winkler, reminding you that I believe that more educated investors are more confident investors, and confident investors are more successful investors. Have a great one. Advisory services offered through Paul Winkler, Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Paul Winkler, Inc. does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation.